You faded to black too early. I was going to do a whole thing.
Oh, well.
Thanks, man.
I'm just trying to do my job.
Thanks, man.
I'm not very good at it, but I'm doing it.
That's crazy. I was going to do a whole thing. Man. Ruined the whole show. Thanks a lot. Really do appreciate that. I was gonna do a whole thing.
Thanks for joining H.G.O. That'll be it. We're done.
That's fucking. There was a whole bit involved. I was gonna do a thing. I was gonna do a scary voice, and then I was gonna be like, "It's Halloween, happy Halloween." And it was gonna be this whole Halloween thing, and then
You didn't tell me.
there's the mystique of Halloween.
You didn't tell me. If you don't explicitly tell me something, I'm gonna fuck it up.
My name is Fred Stewart. Welcome to Scariest and Omens. For the last 3 years, I've had the honor of saying that. With me, almost as always, fucking up my bits, is my co-host.
It's me. It's Taylor.
Hey,
Hi.
Tay.
Hi.
Hi, we're going to move your camera over.
Yeah, I'm a little off-center. I'm still off-center.
It's all right. You know?
Oh, okay. I'm just...
Off-center bits? Well, oh, really? Now you're going to complain about fucking cameras. Not when you just ruined the whole bit.
You didn't tell me. You should have told me, hey, let it stay on black for a little bit.
Well, you were yapping about fucking, like, cheese or something. All right?
I'm still paying attention. I can talk and listen most of the time.
Barely. For the last 3 years, we've had the honor of hosting this show and being here with you. And I didn't want to be sappy at the start of the show, so I'm not going to. So let's get it.
We're going to make him sappy because I ruined the bit.
Yes.
So now you get to be a sap.
Great. Thank you so much for the last 3 years of support. We hope to continue another 3 years and another 4 years. And then eventually, Taylor won't ruin bits at the start of the show.
I'm still going to ruin bits.
She's still going to ruin bits. But thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We really do appreciate it. And it's Halloween season, baby. So,
It is.
you know, it's our fucking spooky ass season.
It's our time.
It's our time. I was going to wear a costume.
I honestly forgot.
Yeah. Right in there.
Yeah, fair.
I was going to grab one, and then I was like, ooh, cool Museum of Death t-shirt. I got distracted. But here we are, podcasting like normal.
Yeah.
But, Tay,
Yeah.
you have a news story.
I mean, I found a couple that were pretty good, but I think I'm gonna go with the one that I didn't tell you about, which is German police say that pizza order number 40 came with a side of cocaine.
Give me that order immediately. And Germans, naturally known for their being jokesters, they love jokes.
Yeah. So German police busted a pizzeria in western city of Dusseldorf that also delivered a side of cocaine when customers asked for item number 40 on the menu. It was, quote, that was one of the best-selling pizzas, according to Michael Graf von Moltke.
I'm ashamed you didn't even, attempt the voice.
I don't know. You can do it.
This is the best-selling pizza.
Oh. I can't do German accents. He said the police were first tipped off by suspicious food inspectors in March when drug squad officers began observing the restaurant. They soon discovered why number 40 was so popular.
Drugs.
When police buzzed the apartment of the pizzeria manager, the 36-year-old allegedly threw a bag of drugs out the window, which fell right into the arms of the police officer.
That's awesome. Like it's a movie, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, let me get the number 40. It's like, they got you. And then they fucking just throw this bag of cocaine at this cop.
Yeah.
Just fucking just goes up.
But so yeah, they knocked on the manager's apartment and they were like, "Hey, bud."
His apartment?
Yeah.
He has an apartment at the pizzeria?
No, they went to go interview the manager who was selling the cocaine.
And he threw cocaine at the cops.
Yeah, and he fucking tossed it out the window.
Honestly,
and fucking landed at the officer.
That's actually a better option than pocket sand.
Pocket cocaine?
Yeah, pocket cocaine. That is way more fucked up. Because pocket sand, you're like, oh god, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah.
Ugh, that was rude. But pocket cocaine, and you're just like, and you start freaking out.
Yeah.
You know, that's awesome.
They said that they found
Don't do that, though.
3.5 pounds of cocaine,
Cocaine.
14.1 ounces of cannabis, and $290,000 in cash. So not a lot
Yeah.
of pot.
Not a lot of pot. A lot of
Quite
cocaine.
a lot of cocaine.
It's quite a bit of cocaine.
Yeah, they they had apparently like also busted an entire drug ring in Western Germany.
They busted in a drug ring?
Yeah.
Nice.
Because of this.
Now that's called good quality police work. Busting inside of a drug ring. This camera's off center.
It is.
Hold on.
Oh, you care about the camera even though mine's off center?
Yeah, because I don't ruin bits, okay?
Also, in case you're
Fucking Lee
curious,
Harvey Oswald, the jokes.
police didn't say how much the pizzeria charged for the special order.
Fucking
but-
John Hinckley Jr. are fun. Now,
Okay.
I don't have any news stories.
Can I tell another one then?
Sure.
It's one for each of us, technically. Except I'm telling them both. Artisan cheese seller in a pickle after thieves made off with massive cheddar haul.
Great. No notes. All right. No notes.
Thieves with a fine nose, with a nose for fine cheese, have pulled off a massive cheddar ripoff in London. Neil's Yard Dairy said con artist posing as a wholesale distributor for a major French realtor had made off with 48,488 pounds of cheddar, 22 metric tons of cheese.
We hit the jackpot, boys. I just we're gonna make so many fucking grilled cheeses, dude. Like, oh my god, you guys have no idea how many grilled cheeses we're gonna make. But I also love the idea of they're in their crime den, which I assume is like an abandoned warehouse on the docks.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, we need to find the next score. It's like, oh, what's our next score gonna be? It's like, I know a place we get some serious cheddar. And they're like, all right, all we gotta do, take this truck. Then we're in. They're like, oh shit.
I'll do the rest.
I'll listen to Frankie. Frankie seems to know what the fuck he's talking about. And then they get back to the warehouse, they open, and then 22 metric tons of cheese just pours out, just kills everybody.
That is so much fucking cheese.
That's a lot of cheese. I don't think a human in their lifetime could eat 22 metric tons of cheese.
Probably not. Apparently, this cheese is worth $390,000.
Gonna sell this on the cheese black market.
Yes. The high monetary value of these cheeses is likely made them a particular target for the thieves.
Of course.
Nearly 1,000 wheels of cloth wrapped cheese from 3 makers have gone missing. Half-odd Welsh organic cheddar, West Combe cheddar, and Pitchfork cheddar. They sell it for a hefty price. I'm fucking
Stop stealing cheese. All right.
do what I want.
Nice. Yes.
Yeah. They say, quote, "We're devastated for that to be stolen. It's absolutely terrible." It is. That's actually fucking awful.
We've heard a lot of horrible things on this podcast. Murder, horrific murder, but that's up there.
It's pretty up there.
It's one of the worst things you could ever do with Italian crime-wise.
Or French.
Ugh.
Just so you all know, Neil's Yard Dairy has asked international cheesemongers to be, I know we have a lot of those who listen to this podcast, is asking for you to be on the lookout for stolen cheese, particularly in 10 kilogram and 24 kilogram blocks. Okay? Just be on the lookout.
Calling all cheese spies. Look out for stolen cheese. Yeah.
I love the name cheesemonger. That's my
Cheesemonger.
favorite.
I'm also a monger.
Of what?
I don't know yet. I haven't decided.
You haven't decided what you're going to monger?
I haven't got my master's degree in mongering.
Oh, okay.
Mongering, it sounds like when you wipe from the front when you shit.
I hate that so much.
Yeah, sorry I'm late, guys. I was too busy mongering. So, for this spooky season, this will come out just before Halloween, so get you guys in the spooky mood. We're going to be doing some Reddit scary stories.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Now, you have 2 stories?
I have more than that.
You have more than that. How many stories do you have?
Like 4.
Like 4? Well, geez.
But I mean, I don't have to go through all of them.
I have 2 stories.
One's
shorter, one's longer.
I have like one from
I was
just.
going to make it just a ball joke. Don't worry about it.
I have one just from like r/scary stories, and then a couple from short scary stories.
Yeah?
So not all of them are like super long. I tried not to choose.
Hence the name, Short Scary Stories.
I tried not to choose
Yeah.
a lot from scary stories because they're usually pretty hefty.
Mm-hmm. Well, the one I have is quite hefty, but it's a very good read.
A lot of people don't want to listen to me talk for that long, so
No, they don't. I can barely handle it.
I'm going to commit something. I don't know
Cheesemongering.
I'm going to commit cheesemongering. That's my new field.
Do you want to run? You want to start off?
Sure.
All right.
Okay, why not?
Taylor, take it away for the spooky season.
I got it. Hold on. Okay, so this one is, there was a body under my bed and no one believed me.
I was reading into this one. I didn't read it all the way.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
There's a body under my bed and no one...
Who's the creator?
Oh, shit.
Did you not add the... See?
My brain is just...
That's crazy.
You
That is
start
crazy.
us off then, and I will go fetch them.
Fine. I will start us off and then not talk until like basically the end of the episode. We're going to start off with my father's memory has been failing him, but there's things we need to discuss by user Chemical Elk 121299. Where are we going again? Dad stared out the passenger window into the fading light between the trees. I hated having to remind him. To my house, I said, placing a gentle hand on his arm. I'm your son, John. I take care of you now. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him looking at me suspiciously, as if trying to catch me in a lie. No, you're not John. Can't be. He's 16. He seemed confident that he figured it out. He closed his eyes, letting his head fall back on the seat. Did Mary send you to pick me up? Have I been drinking again? I felt like screaming at him, dragging his mind back to from wherever people with dementia go into the miserable present. But I bit my tongue. It would just confuse him more. Yeah, I said after a moment. You'll see her soon. Dad was never soft, but he loved me enough to show me how things were. After Mom died, money was tight. There wasn't room left in our house for love or luxury, only whiskey and discipline. He was a hard teacher, but he taught me how to do what I needed to be done. I sacrificed a lot for him to live I sacrificed a lot for him to live with me these past 5 years. His legs bounced up and down against the floorboard. I kept reminding him that we were just driving home, but he seemed agitated. I decided some old memories might calm him down. Hey, Dad, remember when we brought Poppy home? She was the one bright spot in my childhood. He screwed up his face, straining to remember. Wasn't she one of your mother's friends? No, Dad, I said. Poppy was our dog. You got it for me when I was a kid. I don't think he even noticed that I stopped the car. I decided to jog his memory a little bit more. I raised her from a puppy. You told me I could have her so as long as you could afford her. I could see it in his eyes. A flicker. A memory. I told him to get out. We'd arrived. We walked a short distance into the woods. I kept a hand on his wrist so he wouldn't wander off. "Are we nearly there?" he asked. I ignored him. "I borrowed $10 to see a movie, remember? You decided theft needed to be punished. You took Poppy and I into the woods. We stopped next to a patch of freshly turned ground. This seems familiar," he said, a bit less confused than before. I drove him to his knees. We were nowhere near my house. Even his delirium, he knew exactly what the cold barrel against the back of his head was. "What did I do wrong?" he sobbed. I pulled the hammer back. "Just like you said back then." A lifetime of resentment dripping from my words. "I can't afford you anymore."
Damn. Damn.
I read that, dude. Fucking Chemical Elk. That was one of the, I read that story and I was like, oh my God. I found that incredible. I thought that was a fantastic story.
That is really good.
Yes, I thought that was amazing. And I was like, short, sweet, it's fucking dark. So dark. I loved it.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I like that
just
one.
I can't afford you anymore. And then just like, oh, dude.
Yeah.
And then what happened? And then he got down on his knees, and then they hugged each other and said, That's why we're gonna live in the woods."
Oh.
No, he fucking shot his dad in the back of the head and buried him in the woods.
Oh, for sure. I also found a story by Chemical Elk.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Perfect. Chemical Elk. Getting some fucking getting some I mean, they definitely don't need an exposure, but hey, we're two idiots and we fucking love your stories. Please keep writing. So Tay.
Do you want me to do the one by Chemical Elk, or do we want to do the one that I was gonna do?
Whatever's up to you.
Let's do the one I was gonna do because it's pretty good. There was a body under my bed and no one believed me, which is by Cosmic Clocks on Reddit.
Cosmic Clocks. I feel like we've read a Cosmic Clock story before.
Very possible. There was a body under my bed and no one believed me. I was 12 when it happened. While taking inventory of my marble collection, my tiger's eye rolled underneath my bed. Without a second thought, I reached under and felt around, and that's when my hand touched hers. At 12, the only hands I'd ever held were those of my parents when I was little. Right away, I knew what it was when those cold appendages met mine. I recoiled my hand and backed into the adjacent corner of my room. Once I calmed down, I got on all fours and lowered my face to the floor. The last thing I remembered were those eyes, the most intense blue eyes I had ever seen, even to this day. The next thing I knew, I was waking to the concerned faces of my parents standing over me. My sister, Jill, relayed that I had released a blood-curdling scream and passed out right after. Not long after I came to, the memory of what triggered the episode came flooding back. I proclaimed that there was a body under my bed, and of course, like the majority would, my parents thought I was full of shit. They said it was just a bad dream, it's just your imagination, but I was adamant and persistent. They had no choice but to investigate. I sat and waited, huddled on the couch. I covered my ears and closed my eyes to prepare for the scream that I knew would come from my mother. When it didn't come, I held my breath and cracked my lids just enough to see my parents standing before me again. Their expressions were less than that of concern and more of annoyance. They scolded me for playing such a silly prank, and that was that. My parents were the no-nonsense variety, especially my dad. Their irritation with the situation made me question if I truly saw what I thought I'd saw. For the rest of the evening into the night, I avoided my room. Once bedtime came, I wanted to protest, but the look my father gave me spoke louder than words. With shaky legs and shallow breaths, I stepped into my room. Everything looked normal, felt normal, it even smelled normal. Relief and a healthy dose of exhaustion from the day's events washed over me. I hurriedly changed into my PJs and got snuggled into bed. Sleep came to me easier than expected, however, it was not a restful sleep. The nightmares kept me tossing and turning all night. Those damn blue eyes were on the face of everyone I saw. I ran slow motion dream style through crowds of people grabbing and pulling at my limbs and clothing. They seemed to be pleading with me for something. I jolted awake, unsure of what time it could have been. The sun hadn't risen yet, so I knew it was still early. I felt a sense of unease in the atmosphere, and I knew I had to eventually look again. But sooner rather than later, I thought. I opened the drawer on my bedside table and felt around until the familiar shape of my flashlight grazed my fingertips. I gave it a good smack with my palm before turning it on. After giving myself a mental pep talk in which I concluded that none of this was real, I crawled off my bed and onto the floor. I didn't scream this time or pass out. I just stared in shock and utter disbelief. There she was, the same blue-eyed woman that had been the cause of my insomnia that night and for many more nights to come. Her body was bloodied and contorted in such a gruesome way, but it was the look of fear and helplessness in her expression that truly bonded me to my spot. Part of me expected this apparition to rapidly cover the short distance between us and consume me like in the scary movies I wasn't supposed to watch. But she didn't move, blink, or give any indication of life. My stupor finally wore off, and I silently crawled back into bed. I cried myself to sleep, asking the universe why me, and trying to understand how I was going to fix this. Later that morning, I awoke, crusty-eyed and groggy from the crying and lack of sleep. Upon entering the kitchen, I greeted my family, and my mother replied with her back to me as she was still cooking. It wasn't until my father loudly inquired about what the hell happened to my face that I became the focus of attention. My mother made comments about my crusty, puffy eyelids, while Jill lovingly compared my appearance to that of fecal matter, which earned a very stern glance from our father. Without thought, I explained that it was the woman under my bed. Before I could go further into detail, my father briskly cut me off. My father was a harsh man who didn't like to be challenged. Once he had closed the case, there were no appeals. He dealt me some choice words and made it clear that this nonsense prank I was pulling was to end immediately. I don't believe any other words were spoken that morning in our entire household. Everyone just quietly played their roles and went about our days. While I knew better than to utter another word on the subject in the presence of my father, school was another matter. Joey, my best friend and confidant, believed me without hesitation. The brainstorming session was on. "She's got to be like some sort of ghost," Joey said while rubbing his non-existent beard. I'd known Joey since kinder, and even at the ripe age of 5, he was a supernatural enthusiast. But I could feel her hand, I replied, and he proceeded how to explain how not all apparitions are some haunting, ghostly mist. But I still didn't understand, and I was willing to accept any explanation of more substantial than hallucinations. We, mostly Joey, concluded that she was a lost soul who was stuck on this plane. Why she chose to appear to me, we didn't know. My biggest issues at the time revolved around Pokemon trading cards and video games.
Oh, hell yeah. Dude, me too.
I wasn't equipped to help a ghost navigate towards the light or whatever she needed help with. That would not only require mustering the strength to look again, but finding some kind of way to communicate with her. Should I call a priest or get a Ouija board? Would my parents even allow that? All these thoughts, questions, and more continued to rattle my brain for the rest of the day. Upon arriving home from school, the silence of our empty house was deafening. I was usually the first one home, as both my parents worked until the evening and my sister had cheerleading practice. My usual after-school routine consisted of having a snack while watching TV for about 30 minutes, then straight to homework. It, as well as my daily chores, were expected to be done by the time my parents arrived home. And believe me, Dad was gonna check. But today I was on a mission. I would have plenty of time for those later. I walked into my room and stood by my bed with all the confidence I could muster. I had to figure out what the ghost wanted. I had to help her. After counting down from 10, I dropped to the ground and peered under my bed. In an instant, all the bravado I had moments before was gone. My ghost was still there in the same contorted position with the same look of shock and sadness, but her skin had started to turn this dull and sickly gray color. In some places it had begun to sag and droop, giving the impression that it was literally going to fall off the bone, but it was taut and stretched in others. More specifically on her face, which gave a gaunt, skeletal appearance. I didn't know much about death at that age, but I had found enough dead animals in the woods to know that this was a look of decay. It wasn't much longer after this realization that its sickly sweet smell hit my nostrils. I dashed to the bathroom, barely clearing the toilet before my lunch reemerged. When my sister got home, I had managed to clean up any remnants of my little episode, but that was about all I had accomplished. She immediately questioned why none of my chores were done. You know Dad's gonna lose his shit. And I knew she was right, but I couldn't even go into my room without gagging. It's like the sight of the decaying specter unlocked the smell, and now it was permeating every inch of my room. After explaining how the situation worsened, I could see annoyance all over Jill's face. With an exasperated but gentle tone, she said she was going to prove me once and for all that this was in my head. She stood and made a beeline for the closed door. I sprinted in front of her and barricaded the door with arms spread wide. I begged her to leave it shut. The door was barely keeping the stench at bay, and I didn't understand how she couldn't smell the odor as it was still slowly seeping through the bottom gap. My sister hesitated, and at that moment I could see her irritation turn to concern. Without another word, she walked away. My parents arrived together sometime after 6. We technically didn't have a family car, so my dad would use his work truck to pick up and drop off my mom on his way to and from work. Occasionally, he had far-off jobs, and my mom would catch rides with a coworker. These work trips were a blessing to the rest of the family, as it meant we would have a few days without tension and chaos. Sorry. I'm falling apart.
I think the decay smell was starting to hit the studio. I could smell it. Oh, fuck.
So my dad had only been through the door about 30 seconds before his eyes locked onto mine. Swallowed the knot that had formed in my throat the second I heard the car pull into the yard. I tried to get ahead of his anger by word vomiting and what was happening and why I had done no chores. I told him about the decaying skin, the horrendous smell, and those ocean blue eyes. In one swift motion, my father grabbed my arm and dragged me to my bedroom door. His mutterings weren't completely audible, but I was able to make out the phrases, "Wasting my time, an idiotic younging." These were probably in his top 5 sayings of his lifetime. With a ferocity that we were unfortunate enough to see on more than one occasion, he swung my door open, nearly ripping it from the hinges. With one hand still gripping my arm, he used the other to lift my bed frame and all against the wall. My dad was a naturally large and strong man, and lifting my bed one-handed was easy on a good day, but when he was in a rage, the man probably could move a house. Amongst the violent disarray of my crying and gagging and my father's yelling, I could still see her through my tear-filled eyes, still lying there in her death pose. How could he not see her, smell her? My father pulled me close to his face. He growled through clenched teeth, "If you keep pulling these fucking pranks, there will be a body under this bed and it will be yours." The house was quiet the rest of the evening, like it always was after one of my father's extreme outbursts. No one spoke a word for 2 days the first time he broke a television set. My father wasn't exactly what you'd call a loving parental figure. We never had that traditional all-American father-son relationship. From an early age, he had accepted that I didn't possess that same innate aggression in me, and he declared me a lost cause. Although the smell radiating from under my bed was insufferable, I knew better than anyone just how deep my father's rage could go. I got little to no sleep that night. I spent the first couple of hours or so gagging and fighting back the urge to expel what little food I had in my stomach. Once I acclimated to the putrid smell, it was the quiet sobbing that would keep me from sleep. And unfortunately, this was my new normal. Lack of sleep was obvious to my family, but no one dared approach the subject, fearing my father's raid. I would occasionally check in on the stage of my corpse apparition bunkmate. She continued to disgustingly wither away right before my eyes. I remember thinking I would start to resemble a corpse at this rate. And though the sight was gruesome, and I had the thought that maybe she would completely decay and dissolve into nothingness. During this time, my nightmares became more vivid. I would see her running in the woods, not jogging, but running in fear. It was like some kind of horror movie. I could feel her fear. She frantically dodged limbs and other forest debris. She'd glance back at whoever or whatever she was running from, and the look of pure desperation she displayed haunts me more than anything else. The only time I had seen real fear like that before was on TV or in the eyes of my family when my father had one of his more extreme outbursts. It was the fear of knowing something bad was going to happen, and there was absolutely nothing in this world you could do to stop it. As the nights progressed, so did the dreams. Eventually, her pursuer caught up to her. I will spare you the details of her demise, though it came in the form of a sickening, twisted nightmare. Sorry, I'm brain melting. Something told me those scenes were too graphic to not be real. And this woman chose to appear to me. She chose to show me these events, but why? I started doing everything I could, checking the local news websites to see if anyone who looked like her was missing or murdered, but I found nothing. I had started to think this predicament would end with me withering and perishing right along with her. Every day I could see the worry in my mother's eyes, but one sharp glance from my father was enough to make the hardest of men shiver. My mother was a small, meek woman who did what her husband told her, at least to his face. Many nights I was supposed to be deprived of dinner, but she would always manage to sneak me a plate in the wee hours of the morning. She saved me many times in more than one way. After what felt like years, it all ended on one bright, sunny day. I hadn't checked on my specter in a while, and by this point she wasn't much more than a skeleton. The only thing that seemed to resist death's grip was her face. The blue eyes never faded. I prepared myself to see the familiar gaze once again. However, she was gone. I felt a bit of relief, but more sadness than anything. I knew that what I had been seeing and experiencing was real, though I had no proof in those moments. I knew she was real, and I knew what she went through was real, and I hurt for her. No human should have to go through atrocities that this woman suffered. My family was never religious, but in that moment I prayed that she was at peace. As the day progressed, the immense sadness I felt upon discovering my specter's departure began to fade. It was replaced with what I can only describe as deep anxiety. I didn't understand why I felt anxious and on edge, especially since it seemed that my ordeal was over. However, shortly after the lunch period, my life, took a turn I never expected. My principal, Mr. Cash, came to retrieve me from my classroom with no disclaimer as to what prompted the trip to his office. I wasn't an angel by any means, but I had managed to never land myself in the hot seat, not even once. During the deafeningly quiet 2-minute walk, I tried to recall anything I could have done to get myself in trouble, and it wasn't until he opened the door and I saw the worried face of my sister that I knew that the trouble didn't lie with me. Our principal, who was a normally cheerful man, wore an expression that told me no good news was about to come from there on out. He informed us that there had been an incident and our aunt was on her way to pick us up. Jill instantly began to weep. I didn't understand what was happening. Why were our parents coming to get us? Were they hurt? Was Mom hurt? Did Dad hurt her? Mr. Cash stood up and began to walk towards the office door. He paused beside me momentarily and placed a hand on my shoulder. Without another word, he left us to wait. In between my sister's low sobs, he could hear my heart pounding. The thumping seemed to grow louder with each agonizing second that ticked by. It then transitioned to a ringing in my ears. As the ringing was about to reach a fever pitch, the door swung open, revealing my aunt. My aunt wouldn't tell us much, but she confirmed that while our parents weren't hurt, there was an incident, and my mother, my sister, and I would be staying with her for a bit. This statement unleashed a whole new round of questioning. Despite our persistence, our aunt made it clear that my mother had all the answers. Upon arriving at our aunt's house, we found our mother sitting blank-faced and stoic on the couch. You could tell from the puffiness and redness of her eyes that she had been weeping. She immediately outstretched her arms and we melted into them. I still didn't know what terrible thing had happened, but I knew I was happy to be in my mother's arm, and after our meaningful embrace, my sister and I each took a seat on either side. Your father did a very, very bad thing, and he won't be coming home anytime soon, if ever. She said as her voice began to crack. She proceeded to reveal to us that our father had murdered a woman and a stay over while he was on one of his supposed work trips. Mother didn't go into much detail to try and spare us the trauma, to prevent us from stumbling upon the gruesome facts of it all. We weren't allowed to watch cable or access the internet. We were told we would be taking the rest of the week off of school, maybe longer. This would normally be a 12-year-old's dream, but this felt more like a hellscape. That night, after everyone else had made peace with the Sandman, I crept into the living room and turned into the local news station. It wasn't long before I saw her plastered on the screen. Dressed in a jet black cap and gown was my ghost girl, Anna Elizabeth Collins. She was 19, not much older than my sister. She'd fallen into the wrong crowd after graduating high school. Her body had been found by some hikers out in the woods. Our father and his work truck fit the description of a man seen giving her a ride. Police followed him for weeks, waiting for him to slip up. They retrieved DNA from a cigarette that he had tossed onto the ground, but it was a match for not just Anna, but 2 other unsolved missing persons cases. As I stared into her eyes, I felt tranquility I had never felt before. Though Anna suffered greatly at the hands of my father, I somehow knew that she was at rest. I turned off the TV and lay on the couch until I drifted off to sleep. That night there was no gagging, tossing, turning, or nightmares. That night I dreamt I was standing in the middle of my room and Anna appeared in the doorway. But not as the mangled corpse I was used to, but how she looked in the photos and videos on the news. Her face was serene and angelic. She glided across the entire room as a light of aura filled the entire space around us. She placed a hand on each of my shoulders and gently pulled me into an embrace. I knew that life was going to be very different from my family and me after this, but in that moment, I knew we would eventually be okay.
Wow.
Is that what you were expecting?
No, I was not expecting that.
It's pretty good.
He's murder.
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 Very good story. It was very long. I apologize.
No, that was fantastic. I do have a quick, short, scary story.
Okay.
I did find one just real quick.
Oh boy.
It's called "There's Something Wrong with My Cat" by Blame Taco-Me.
Oh, okay.
User. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
It's fucking scary. All right. Short, but it's good.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I see her taking the shits in her litter box, but when I go to clean the shits, they're not there.
Oh my God.
Later, I find them in the bathtub. Also, sometimes I catch her wearing a little black cape and mask and carrying bags of stuff in and out of the house. And the other day, she killed some guy. That's it.
Oh, okay. Great. Yeah, that's
Are you fucking scared, dude?
I'm pretty spooked.
That was pretty scary.
You spooked?
Yeah.
Is this story about Bruiser?
Yes.
Oh, okay. You wrote this?
No.
No,
I didn't. No, this is
sure?
blame Taco-Me. User blame Taco-Me.
Oh, okay.
No, I have written horror stories before.
Yeah.
Nothing of this quality. All right. It's pretty good. Now, do you want to tell your final one, or do you want me to get into this long one?
What are we at?
40 minutes.
Wow. Let me see. I think I have a short one.
You have a short one?
Yeah, I got a short one. Let's see here.
Even if it goes long, that's all right.
Let's see.
Doing it for you.
So, this one
Yes.
is Salami Olives Sausage by Lilith's Love.
This is not a shitpost?
No.
Oh, I'm shocked. That seems like a title I would read.
It does seem like one, but it's not. There was nothing special about the piece of place I worked. It offered your run-of-the-mill dough, strategically covered in enough grease to trick your mind into thinking it actually tasted good. There was nothing glamorous about the job. I didn't get to make great discoveries or save lives, but it was a job that paid the bills. My rent was due tomorrow. My gut clenched. My glut clenched. Sorry.
My glut clenched.
My glut clenched, reminding me of my account balance. My tips tonight would determine if I would be paying it on time or not. I barely heard the screen chime as an online order came in. One small pizza with salami, olives, and sausages. Simple enough, I thought. I created the artery-killing monster and gave it to the delivery driver, Carl. He glanced down at the address and scoffed. 19th South Street? That's like 2 blocks away. Lazy bastard couldn't just walk over for it. Hey, delivery gives better tips. Remember, you owe me half, I said, and I wondered if the desperation came through in my voice. Carl turned and waved a hand in the air, like a child waving at a nagging mother to remind her son to wash behind his ears. He wasn't gone 10 minutes before he came back, pizza still in his hand. Lazy bastard didn't even answer the door. I tried calling, no answer. Want to split it? I eyed the pizza, as sick of it as I was. I had barely eaten today. Sure. What was on it? Salami, olive, and sausage? Ew. Never mind. All yours. Which, I'd eat that.
Yeah, that sounds fire.
That sounds good. What, you don't like olives? Pussy.
Extra sausage.
I shrugged and broke the seal on the box. It was a sticker that promised and lied about using only fresh ingredients. I took a bite into the first piece. It was salty, the toppings an overwhelming choice. It felt good in my stomach, filling me up than my lunch of ramen had. As I walked home that night, the pizza wasn't setting quite as well as it had been. Too much junk, I told myself, and not enough food. My stomach turned harder when I saw flashing lights ahead of me, 5 police cars, and an ambulance in front of a small house. My walking slowed as I got closer. A group of people had gathered around police tape, warded off by a force field of yellow and black lines. I walked to the nearest group of people and motioned towards the house with a nod of my head. An old lady near me sighed. Boyfriend held his girlfriend hostage inside, snapped and killed her when she tried to escape. God rest her soul, she was just a young thing. I looked at the crime scene, noticing the house number beneath a smear of blood. My breath caught in my throat and I struggled not to choke. 19th South Street, the same house that ordered the pizza. Salami, olives, sausage. SOS.
Oh, dude, that's fucking great.
It was good.
That's fun.
Title reads like shitpost. It's not.
No, that's great.
Good.
That's fucking. Hey, that was solid. It was some good creative writing. I really enjoyed that.
Good.
Yeah, that was fun.
It was one
It was
of the
horrible.
shorter ones.
Like it was horrible. Like it was fucked up.
Yeah.
But
Well.
great story.
Yeah.
A lot of murder.
It'd be
For
like
this show, I'm shocked.
No, that's never
We're
happened.
talking about Jeffrey Brudos. Talking about Jerry Brudos
Yeah.
last week. So
It'd be like that.
it do be like that. Now, one final story for the Halloween season.
Depending on what our time's at, maybe we'll have one more.
Maybe we'll have one more. We'll see. But this is Something Walks Whistling Past My House Every Night at 3:03 by user Grand Theft Moto. Motto? Excuse me. Every night, no matter the weather, something walks down our street whistling softly. You can only hear it when you're in the living room or the kitchen when they walk by, and it always starts exactly at 3:03. The sound starts faint somewhere near the beginning of the lane near the Carson place. We're towards the middle of the street, so the whistling moves past us before fading away in the direction of the cul-de-sac. When I was younger, my sister and I would sneak into the kitchen some nights to listen. Mom and Dad didn't like that, and we'd catch hell if they found us out there. But they were never too hard on us, since we always stuck to the one big rule. Don't try to look at whatever was whistling. My neighborhood is a funny place. I've lived here since I was 6, and I love it. The houses are small but well kept, good-sized yards, and plenty of places to roam. There are a lot of other kids here my age. I turned 13 back in October. We grew up together and would always play foursquare in the cul-de-sac or roam around from back porch to back porch in the summer. This was a good place to grow up, and I'm old enough to see it. And there's only the two strange things here: the night whistling, and the good luck. The whistling never bothered me much. Like I said, I couldn't even hear it from my bedroom. But Mom and Dad don't like talking about it, so I've stopped asking questions. My dad is a strong guy, tall and calm. He has an accent since he moved to the U.S. as a kid. His family, my grandparents, they're from the islands. That's what they call it. My dad, the only time he isn't so calm is if the whistler comes up. He talks a little quicker then. His eyes move faster, and he tells us not to think about it so much and to always remember the one rule, the big rule. Don't try to look outside when the whistler goes past. Not that we could even look if we wanted. See, there are shutters on the inside of every window, thick pieces of heavy canvas that pull down from the top and latch to the bottom of the window frame. Each latch even has a small lock, about the size of what you'd find on a diary. My dad locks those shutters every night before we all go to bed and keeps the key in his room. My mother, I don't know what she thinks about the whistling. I've seen her out in the living room before 3:03 when the sound starts. I could see her if I cracked my door open just an inch to peek. She's not out there often. At least I haven't caught her much. But once or twice a month, I think she sits out there on her big red couch just listening. The whistler has the same tune every night. It's cheerful. Da 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 dum. Da 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 dum dum. Just whistling. I can't whistle very well, so I was going to do it, but I can't whistle.
There you go. You whistle better than I do.
Just whistling.
Mm-hmm.
Just cheerful. Remember how I said there are two odd things that happen where I live? Well, besides our night whistler, everyone in my neighborhood is really lucky. It's hard to explain, and my dad doesn't like us talking about this part much either, but good things just seem to happen to the people around here a lot. Usually it's small things, winning a radio contest, or getting an unexpected promotion at work, or finding some arrowheads buried in the yard, the authentic kind. The weather is pretty good, there is no crime, and everybody's gardens bloom extra bright in the fall. A million little blessings, I've heard my mom say about living here. But the main reason we stay here, why we moved here in the first place, is because of my sister Nola. She was born very sick, something with her lungs. We couldn't even bring her home when she was born, only visited her in the hospital. She was so small, I remember. Small even compared to other babies. A machine had to breathe for her. We moved into our house here to be closer to the hospital. As soon as we moved here, Nola started getting better. The doctors couldn't figure it out. They chalked it up to whatever they were doing, but we all could tell they were confused. But my parents knew. Even I knew. Nola getting better was just another one of the million little blessings we got for living in our neighborhood. So that's why we stayed even after we found out that for every small miracle that happens here every day, now and then, something bad happens. But they only happen if you look for the whistler. See, our neighborhood has a welcoming committee. They show up with macaroni casserole and a gift basket and a manila folder whenever someone new moves in. They're friendly. 4 people showed up, so they're very friendly. 4 people showed up when we moved in 7 years ago. The committee made small talk, gave me a Snickers bar, and took turns holding Nola. It was her first week out of the hospital, so they were extra careful. When the committee asked to speak to my parents in private, so I was sent to my room, where I managed to hear nearly every word. The welcoming committee told my parents about how nice the neighborhood was, really exceptionally, hard to explain kind of nice. And they told my parents about the even harder to explain whistling that happened every morning at 3:03 and ended at the tick of 3:05. The group, our new neighbors, warned my parents that the whistling was quiet, but never harm or hurt us as long as we didn't look for what was making the sound. This part they stressed, and I pushed my ear into the door, straining to hear them. People who went looking for the whistler had their luck changed, sometimes tragically. A black cloud would hang over anyone that looked. Anything could go wrong would. The manila envelope the committee brought over contained newspaper clippings, stories about car crashes, ruined lives, and public deaths and freak accidents. Not everyone dies, I heard the head of the committee tell my dad, but the life goes out of them. Even if they live, there's no light in them ever again. No presence. My mom, I could tell she wasn't taking it seriously. She kept asking if it was some prank they play on new neighbors. At one point, my mom got angry, accused the committee of trying to scare us out of our new home, and asked them if they were racist on account of my dad being from the islands. My dad calmed her down, told her that he could tell our new neighbors were sincere and they're just trying to help us. He explained that he grew up hearing these kinds of stories from his mom and knew he knew there were strange things that walked among us. Some of those strange things were good, some of those were bad, but most were just different. After the committee left, my dad went out to the hardware store, bought the canvas blinds, latches, and locks, and installed them on every window in the house after dinner. That first night in our new house, I crept out of my room at 3 a.m., only to find my dad awake, sitting on the living room couch, holding my baby sister. My dad held up a finger in a shh motion, but patted the couch next to him, and I sat, and we waited. At exactly 3:03 a.m., we heard the whistling. It came just as it went, just like our neighbors said. The whistling returns each night, and we never look, and we enjoy our million little blessings every day. Nola breathes on her own, and she's grown into a strong, clever girl. My dad even joined the welcoming committee. We don't get new neighbors often. Why would anyone want to leave? But when a new family moves in, my dad and the committee bring them over a macaroni casserole, a gift basket, and the manila folder. I can always tell by the look on my dad's face when he comes back if the family took the committee seriously or if we're getting new neighbors again very soon. Not long ago, a family moved in directly next to us. The previous owner, Mrs. Maddie, passed away at the age of 105. She lived a good, long life. Our new neighbors seemed like they just fit in just fine. They believed the welcoming committee, took my dad's advice about locking shutters down since they had a young child of their own. Whatever newspaper clippings were in the manila envelope, whatever evidence, my dad never let us see. But I imagine it must have been awfully convincing since our neighbors got along with no issues for the first month. One night, our new neighbors had to leave town. They sent their son, Holden, to stay with us. He was 12, a year younger than me in school. I didn't know him well before that night, but as soon as his parents dropped him off after dinner, I could tell it was going to be a bad time. "Do you know who is always out there whistling every night?" Holden asked the moment the adults left the room. The three of us were sitting in the den, some Disney movie playing idly on the television. My sister and I exchanged a glance. "We don't talk about that," I said. "I think it's that weirdo that lives in the big yellow house on the corner," Holden said. "Mrs. Tolles?" my sister asked. "No way. He's really nice." Holden shrugged. "Must be a psycho killer then." Nola tensed. "We don't talk about it," I repeated. "Let's go back to my room and play some Nintendo." We spent the next few hours playing games, eating popcorn, and then watching a movie. A typical sleepover, but I could see Holden was getting antsy. After my parents had wished us a good night, locked the blinds, and gone to bed, Holden stood up from his beanbag and walked over to where Nola and I were sitting on my bed. "Have you ever even tried looking?" he asked. "It's nearly time." Like most sleepovers, we'd conventionally ignore the suggestions of a bedtime. I was shocked to see that he was right. It was almost 3 a.m. I sighed. I can't even try to look because my dad locks the blinds every night and hides the key," he continued, ignoring me. "So does our dad," said Nola. "No," replied Holden. "No, he doesn't." "You saw him do it," I said, a little sharper than I meant to sound. Holden grinned. "Your dad locks the blinds, yeah, but he doesn't hide the key. He keeps it right on his normal keychain." "So?" I asked, worried that I already knew what he would say next, because I had noticed that my dad didn't bother hiding the key anymore after all these years because we took it seriously. "So, after your dad locked up before your parents went to bed, I went to the bathroom. And on my way, I may have peeked into the room, and I may have seen your dad's keychain on his nightstand, and I maybe went and borrowed the keys to the blinds." Noel and I stared, and his grin only grew wider. "You're lying," I said. Holden shrugged. You can check if you want. Just open your parents' door and look. You'll see his keychain right there on the nightstand." "Stay here," I told them both. "Don't move a muscle." I hurried over to my parents' room, but hesitated at the door. If Holden wasn't lying, my dad would be angry. Beyond angry. I was scared thinking about it, but more scared of an open window with the whistler right outside. I opened the door barely an inch and looked in, but it was too dark to see. Taking a deep breath, I walked into the room. 2 steps into the dark, I froze. The whistling started. I could hear it clearly from my parents' room. I never realized they must have heard the sound every night since we moved into the house. They never told us. I don't think I could have slept through it. I stood there, listening to the whistling come closer, unsure whether I should turn on the light or call out to my dad. Soft sounds from the living room brought me back to reality. "Nola!" I yelled, running out of my parents' room. Holden and Nola were standing near the front door next to a window. Holden wasn't lying. I could see him fumbling with the lock on one of the blinds. I heard it click. He did have the key. Holden let out a quick laugh. Nola stood next to him, hunched up, afraid, but maybe curious. The whistling was right outside our house now. I think I made a sound, called out, I can't remember. Time felt frozen. Clock hands nailed to the face, but I found myself moving. I'm not fast. I've never been athletic. Somehow, though, I covered the space between myself and Nola in a moment. My eyes were locked on her, but I heard Nolan pull the blind all the way down so it could release. I heard the snap as it started to raise, and I heard the whistling just on the other side of the window. But I had my arms around Nola and I turned so she was facing away from the window. At the same time, I jammed my eyes shut. The blind whipped open. The whistling stopped. I felt Nola shaking my arms. Don't look, okay? I told her. Don't turn around. We were positioned so that she was facing back towards the hallway, and I was facing the window. My eyes were still closed. I felt her nod into my shoulder. I reached out with an arm, not holding Nola, and tried to touch Holden. My hand brushed against his arm. He was shaking worse than Nola. Holden? I asked. Silence. I reached past him, gingerly felt for the window. Eyes still sealed shut. The glass was cold against my fingertips, colder than it should have been for the time of year. I moved my hand up the window, searching for the string to the blind. The glass began to get warmer the further I reached, and there was a gentle hum feeding back into my fingertips. I tried to not think about what might be on the other side of the window. Finally, I touched the string and yanked the blind shut. I opened my eyes. In the dim light leaking out from the kitchen, I could make out Holden, pale and small, staring at the now closed window. Holden? I asked again. He turned towards me and screamed. Everything became a flurry of motion. Lights sparked life in the hall and the living room. My parents' footsteps thudded against the hardwood floor. I didn't turn to look at them. My eyes were glued to Holden. He was pale. Had bit his lip so hard there was a thin red line of blood dripping down his chin. He had wet himself. What happened? My dad asked from behind me. I managed to swivel away from Holden and look back. He looked. I'd never seen my dad scared before, like I did that night. In that moment, an old, ugly terror stitched his face. A parent's fear. Just Holden? He mouthed to me. I nodded yes. My dad let out a breath. He looked so relieved, and I nearly expected him to cheer. But then he turned to Holden, and my dad's face changed. I wondered if he felt bad for feeling good that Holden was the only one that looked. There was a knock on the door. We all froze. Holden whimpered. Don't answer it, my mom said. She stood at the threshold of the hall. I'd always thought she was a skeptic and just humored my dad about the windows and the whistler, but that night we were all believers. I noticed that both of my parents held baseball bats, as they must have taken them from their bedroom. The knock came again, a little louder this time. Please don't open the door, Holden whispered. My dad walked over to him, hugged him close. We won't, my dad promised, still holding his bat. Nothing is coming in here tonight. This time the knocking was loud enough to rattle the door. Holden screamed again. Nola clutched her arms around my neck. My mom came over and knelt down next to us, wrapping my sister and me close. Thud, thud, thud. Call the police, my mom whispered to my dad. The knocking instantly stopped. My dad looked over his shoulder at us. Do you think he was cut off by the frantic knocking, trailed off into a polite Police, something said from the other side of the door. The voice from outside sounded exactly like my mom, like a parrot repeating the words back to her. Police. Call the police. Police. My mom pulled us closer. Police. 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 Please stop, I heard her whisper. I don't think calling them would help, my dad said. How will we know when they're the ones at the door? The knocking came back harder than before. The door shook. Then it stopped. After a long moment, I heard the knocking again, but it was coming from our back door. We all turned together towards the back door, but the knocking immediately returned to the front door. Front to back to front, loud, then quiet, then loud again. Suddenly, the sound was coming from both doors at once. Big, heavy blows like a sledgehammer. Then, something started rapping against all the windows of the house, then the walls. It was like we were living inside of a drum with a dozen people trying to play at once. Or we were a turtle and something was attempting to claw us out of our shell. Stop! Holden yelled. The knocking died. I won't tell, Holden said, staring at the door. I promise I won't tell anyone what I saw. Please just go away. We waited for nearly a minute. Then, we heard it, a soft tap, 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 coming from the window Holden had looked through earlier. Holden started to cry, sobbing like a prisoner watching gallows being built outside their cell. My dad held him, brushed his hair, but never lied to him, never told him that things would be okay. The tapping at the window went on for the rest of the night. We huddled together in the living room for I don't know how long. Eventually, my mom tried to take us kids into my room, while my dad stayed to watch the door. But the second we moved into my bedroom, the knocking came back. It was so loud, it was possible to ignore. I was afraid the door couldn't take it. We went back to the living room. The knocking stopped. Only the tap, tap, tap on the window remained. None of us slept that night. The tapping stopped around 7 a.m. That's about the time the sun came up here. We waited another 2 hours before my dad opened the blinds from the one window. He made us all go back to my parents' bedroom first. We heard him open the door, then come in. Okay. It's done. Holden's parents came back around lunchtime. My mom and dad walked Holden over to his house, and they all went inside for quite a while. Nola and I watched from the window. She stuck to me the whole day, right at my side, sometimes holding my hand. Well, when my parents came back, they looked grim, but wouldn't tell us what they said to Holden's family. It was a Sunday, so we went to spend the day together, ordering pizza and watch movies. That night, everyone slept in my room. Nola and my mom in the bed with me, and my dad in a chair he'd pulled over. There was no knocking that night, or any night since. We didn't see much of Holden or his parents for the rest of that week. By Thursday, there was a moving truck in their driveway. Nola and I watched them packing up the whole afternoon after school. What sticks with me the most is how tired Holden and his parents look. All three had the same pallor, grim mouths, lightless eyes. Even from across the street, I could tell something was very wrong. Holden and his family were gone before sunset. I remember what the original welcome committee said to my parents when we moved in. Not everyone who looks at the Whistler dies, but even those that live have the light go out in them, and the rest of their lives are full of misfortune, a million little tragedies. I think Holden's parents must have looked, either to comfort him if they didn't believe, or share the burden if they did. I watched Nola some days, happy and young and alive, and I wonder if I had been slower, if she had looked out the window that night. Would I have looked to comfort her, to share that burden? I'm glad I didn't find out. We still live in that house, in that neighborhood. We still hear our whistler walking past every night. The blessings, the luck, the good things here are too good to leave, but we are careful. We don't have friends over to spend the night anymore, and my dad hides the key to the blinds very, very well. Not that I've gone looking. For some things, you don't just need... Some things you just don't need to look for.
That was pretty spooky.
I read that story and I was like, that was fucking great.
It's a good story.
Oh, it's fun, right? Pretty fun.
Pretty spooky.
It's pretty spooky. I was reading that when I got home. I was laying down and I was reading stories and I was like, this is fucking scary, dude. This is fucking spooky, man. I like it.
Spooky.
It's going to be really spooky. Tay, do you want to close this out?
Sure.
All right.
Do one more. This is by the same user of our first story.
Chemical Elk.
Yeah.
12-1299.
Yeah. It's called My Fiancé Killed Her Son. Today, I found out why. It all happened so fast. My fiancé and I were sitting on our couch. I'd only proposed the night before, but she was already planning guest lists and cake arrangements. Our baby, Thomas, snoozed in his bassinet. All seemed normal. But as we discussed venues, she suddenly froze mid-sentence. She had a strange look, half confusion, half desperation. She began shaking. When I asked her what was wrong, her lips struggled to form words over chattering teeth. Cold. It was Arizona in July. Nothing seemed to warm her up. By then, she was doubled over, clutching her stomach in agony. She repeated one word again and again. Hungry. Thomas began to cry. Something was very, very wrong. I ran to the bedroom to get my phone. She needed an ambulance, but from the next room I heard a sharp cry and a sound like snapping twigs. I saw my fiancé holding Thomas in her arms, blood everywhere. She was eating him. "What have you done?" I screamed. She didn't seem to notice or care. I tried to wrench him from her grasp, but she only howled, "Food! Food!" Her grip around his little legs like iron. I ran for my gun and I didn't know what else to do. That was 15 years ago. The case made national headlines. Suburban psycho eats child. The overwhelming silence of an empty house was deafening. Eventually, I threw all of their belongings away and I only kept the engagement ring. We'd found it hiking in the Sierras just before we learned she was pregnant. A tarnished gold band inscribed with the initials T.D. Definitely old. I couldn't bear to part with it. She always wanted to know where it came from. Recently, I let a historian friend of mine do some digging. He called me, talking rapid fire, clearly ecstatic. As he spoke on the speakerphone, I slipped the ring over my finger and began to record the call. I wanted to preserve this to honor her memory. "Hey, Mike, I think you might have something special." As he went on, my hands felt strangely numb. Based on appearance, I'd estimate the ring to be mid-19th century. I turned up the heat. I couldn't seem to get warm. Based on location, I think it was lost by a settler coming over the mountains. I'd never been so cold in my life. The foam began to tremble, and I was so hungry, my stomach turning in knots. As for the initials, I think I know who that is. If so, it would solve a real historical mystery. So hungry. Never be warm again. Needed food. Needed to survive. Needed meat. He didn't hear me drop my phone or walk out into the street. He continued breathlessly to an empty room. "I think TD is Tamsin Donner. Her husband was the leader of a group of pioneers called the Donner Party. From outside, a muffled scream. Her body was never found. That's a pretty spooky one.
Holy shit, dude.
It's a pretty good one. A pretty nice short little story.
Yeah, those. Do you have one more?
Yeah.
You want me to read it? Do you want to read it?
It's up to you.
It's up to you.
I don't mind either way. Do you want to read it?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't know.
I got 14% on my phone. I didn't charge my phone before we started this. So.
Is it short?
Yeah.
Then perfect.
It should be.
My Daughter Takes My Pain by KJ Camps. Correct?
Yes.
All right. I don't know why I chose to read this one. You should definitely read this one.
Do you want me to?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like it would hit better. I
Okay.
just started reading the first lines and I was like, absolutely not.
What, you don't want to say it?
I'm not pregnant.
I was pregnant with Sarah when I first prayed that she'd take away my pain. I was so sick of the beatings, the cursing, the tormenting. My husband was not a nice man. Knowing that I'd soon be a mother was the wake-up call I needed. I left that night, packed my bags while he was out, bought a bus ticket, and disappeared. I prayed to God for Sarah, that she would take away my pain, that the beginning of her life would also mark a re-beginning of mine. What I didn't expect was for God to take my request quite so literally. It was only when she was just over a year old that I figured it out. Sarah was sitting in her high chair, watching me cook. I was cutting up vegetables for our dinner when the knife slipped, slicing the tip of my finger open. I swore, rushing to grab a kitchen towel when suddenly the pain vanished. I stared down at my finger as the wound sealed, leaving a perfect little white scar. Suddenly, Sarah screamed. I ran over to her and watched in horror as blood began to spill from a slice that slowly drew across her little finger. From that day onward, my safety was no longer my concern, but Sarah's too. She took my pain, and we shared the same scars. One on the tip of our finger, one on our knee, one on the underside of our chin, and one on the left side of on the side of our left foot. All my scars were now hers, except for one. I was called to her kindergarten almost a year ago. Sarah had injured herself on the playground, and they'd taken her to the emergency room. I wasn't too worried. They told me it was a simple gash, but it probably required a few stitches. The scar was her favorite, in the shape of a little star on her forearm. It was the only scar we didn't share. Our lives weren't perfect, but we were happy until he tracked us down. I knew it was him by the way he knocked on the door. That pounding held a familiar anger. I pushed Sarah into a room, told her to lock the door. I ran for the kitchen and pulled a knife from the drawer just as he kicked down the door, shouting and raving. He leapt for me, his hands around my throat. It wasn't just fear for my life that made me lash out with a knife. It was for Sarah. His choking hands would not end just my life, but hers too. I buried the knife up to the hilt in his chest, and there was hardly any blood. Without a sound, he dropped to the floor, and I knelt down shakily, feeling for a pulse at his arm. There was none. It was then that I noticed a small scar on his arm in the shape of a star.
Holy shit, dude.
Mm-hmm. Also a good one.
Also going, get fucking stabbed, dude. Well, that was a fun, spooky episode, Tay.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I feel like I had some good ones in there.
Yeah, no, you had some really good ones. I only had my two.
They were pretty good though.
I liked them. I was a big fan of them.
Spirit came up and decided to listen to scary stories while she naps.
Yeah, she's tired.
She's had a lot happen today. We were at a dog show, and then she went and got some vaccines, so she's eepy.
She is eepy.
Eepy girl.
She got the sleep vaccine.
No, she did not.
That's what the government doesn't want you to know.
What?
The government's gonna give you sleepy vaccines.
It's not how
Gonna make everyone tired. And
not.
that's when the reptilians are gonna take control.
No? I don't think so.
I had a... Now we're just off topic. I had a guy that I worked with I'm not going to say names, who, if I would have told that to him, he would have been like, yeah. Would have 100% agreed with me. I'm like, I'm just doing a bit, dude. This isn't real.
Could be. You never know.
It's not.
It might.
I'm not a CIA plant. You are.
What?
I know what you are. You guys can't tell, but Taylor just blinked sideways. But yeah, I want to thank everyone for 3 years of Scariest and Omens. It's been a dream. It's been fantastic. We're growing each more. Growing each more.
Growing each more.
Growing each more. Growing, a lot. And it's awesome. I'd love to see it. We are, well, hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, schedules should be fine. But hopefully, episode 1, Beyond the Omens, will be out on Halloween. It's kind of my plan. Oh. So Beyond the Omens, I'll talk about. You guys might have seen their socials. Just like a more relaxed fit of Scariest and Omens. Not necessarily reading stories, but talking goss, shooting goss. Talking about horror movies, talking about aliens, talking about ghosts. You know, it's what me and Taylor. Taylor has her autism nest. Mm-hmm. Yes, and I have my. I'm not gonna say goon cave. I was gonna do a callback to that joke, but.
No, it's his goon cave. We're just gonna.
It's more of a goon corner.
We could hang something up if you want it to be cave-like.
I don't need that.
Like.
Never mind. Go ahead.
You know those like, they're like the chiffon, drapery that hangs over your bed like teenage girls always have. We could get that for your goon corner. And that could be more of a goon cave.
Yeah, I'm a goon corner.
What do you think? We can get it in black.
Well, yeah. No black lights allowed.
What? What?
I don't want them to see me in there being a goon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want Batman to see me.
Are
we thinking of the same goon?
No.
What kind of goon are you thinking of? Because I'm thinking of the one where I stand in the corner in like a trench coat and a weird hat. I'm like, it's a freaking bat! Like that kind of goon.
That's not what I was thinking when you said gooning.
Oh, you meant like jerking off? Disgusting. You're disgusting. But of course I'm going to do that in that corner.
I'll work on getting you like a drapery to go over. So we can make it more of a cave for you.
I'll just walk in the middle. What's the plan, boss? Like that kind of shit.
Every time you walk over there.
Yeah. And then I'll fiercely jerk off. Does your dad watch the show?
Yeah, sometimes.
Hey, what's up?
I hope you didn't stick around this long.
I'm fucking dumb. Now, working on getting everything edited for our new ghost hunting series, our new pilot, and hopefully that will also be out by Halloween. The plan is to drop both on Halloween.
Nice.
But it'll be very fun, and I'm also streaming again, so go check me out. But we'll do all that kind of things. But I just want to say, if you guys have a story you want to tell us, please do. We'd love to hear your stories. Or if you have a spooky job of some kind, maybe you're a ghost tour guide, maybe you're working on a place, maybe you do something strange and unusual. Do you work for the government? I know you do. Email us, HGOPodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, HGOPodcast. On all that, we're on Threads. I don't know how Threads really works. I post on there.
I don't even know. I didn't even know, like, honestly, until you made an account, I did not know that was a thing.
Threads?
Yeah.
Yeah, Threads is like Twitter, but you don't see beheading footage and boobs within 2 scrolls.
Okay.
So, like, it's lame Twitter.
I only just recently found out that Threads was a thing, like, because I went on Instagram for the first time in, like, months, and I was like, what the fuck is this? Because I always have the ads for it.
Yes.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then I've never created an account, never opened it. I just keep on scrolling.
Yeah, my because of course, like with any social media, when you start liking things, it'll start popping up. So whenever, because unfortunately, what happened is a lot of my friends would send me horrific combat footage.
Oh, on Instagram?
On Twitter.
Oh.
On X.
Oh, okay.
And then, so now all I see when I open Twitter, it's like political candidates talking about this, alien footage, and then it's like, see this dude's head getting cut off in 4K? And you're like, whoa, dude. Skip a little bit. How does it end? It ends bad.
It ends how you think it did.
Yeah. No. That's the way she goes. But you want to follow me directly on, you can. I Hunt the Haunted on Instagram. I Hunt the Haunted on Twitch. Rewind. Twitch.tv/I Hunt the Haunted. And yeah, I'm kind of doing some like music stuff too. So, but you'll see when that stuff's done. But pass off to.
Hi, you can follow me on TikTok and Instagram at Lunar Thrill. That's all I got. That's all I do. I ain't got nothing else, really. I mean, I have a Twitter, but I don't use it. And don't have Threads, so you're not going to find me there. Yeah, that's about it. I also got this. Hold on. Ugh. This one. You can follow at Spirit the Turf. Extra EP hours because she got Benadryl vaccines. I wish. Can we? Hold on.
That's the wrong camera. You're pressing the wrong buttons.
I am.
There you go. Diehard.
Hi. She's
Happy Halloween.
so EP.
So tired. Before we go, to really like drive in the fact that this is Halloween. This is Halloween.
I blocked. I blocked you petting
I'm gonna give
her.
you one more story.
Okay.
This comes from Ya Dicabras. We've talked about before.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, Dicabras has been on here.
Yes.
Forensics examiner told us the meat was human. Scary. It was after an arduous 9-hour interrogation. My friend was dead. I was the main suspect, since that was how the cookie crumbles.
Of course.
First, you go from the relatives, then to the friends, then out again. Everyone's a suspect, except I passed the lie detector test. I Googled how to. I know the meat at the barbecue was not just beef. Ooh. Y'all dig bros, hit it again.
He did. He did good. That's it?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
Cool.
Scary, huh? I know you're scared.
I'm pretty spooked.
Pretty scared.
I'm pretty spooked.
But for real though, one final story. You ready to get really scared?
Mm-hmm.
see if we can do the ending in unison, because I know you know what it is. So you're with your honey and you're making out when the phone rings. You answer it and the voice says, "What are you doing with my daughter?" You ask your girl, she says, "My dad is dead." Then who was phone? Remember to stay spooky.
Stay haunted.
And happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.